Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Techsbook Roundtable Podcast. Today, we've got a guest who isn't just a business guy. He's one of the key people who helped shape the technician installation community. If you're in the telematics or 12-volt space, you probably already know his name. Tomas Keenan is the founder of Step It Up Academy, a business coach, speaker, and the author of Unfuck Your Business. But before all that, he built and ran a successful telematics installation company and created one of the most influential Facebook groups for industry pros. He's been in the trenches, made the mistakes, and now helps others avoid them. Tomas, welcome to the show.
David, this is an honor, sir. This is a role reversal for us.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, man. Last time we did this, I think I was the host and you were the guest, if I recall correctly.
It's fair.
Yeah, man. No, this is cool. Glad to be here. It's wild, man. You know, I took a bit of a hiatus from being a podcast guest at other people's shows, and not for like the lack of people asking, just like, how life and business gets sometimes like, yo, I got to pause for a second. I love doing them. It's great conversation, but there's real work to be done too. And needed to kind of just hit the brakes in that for a while. And I'll be honored to tell you, man, you're the first one that I've been on now in probably close to 3 months.
I'm honored.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
I definitely appreciate it, man. Like we talked about before, we have really good conversations. It's kind of fluid when we talk to one another. So I figured you as one of our first guests just made absolute sense.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for real. I'm ready to roll here. I'm an open book. You know that by now. I think our background, even though we're technically not from the same place, because, Brooklyn, Long Island, a little different.
Yeah, a little different.
Nuances there, but you and I both come in with some of that New York flair and I don't know, call it spice.
The way I was introduced to you was not as a business owner, but more of you didn't just run a business. You kind of just built this whole community. And for me, I felt like you was the cornerstone of that community, of building that community out, where for this niche industry inside of telematics, nobody really spoke about the technicians' woes, right? Everything was just hidden and the technicians just need to figure it out on their own. And you built this community to kind of get away from that and created this visibility of what those woes were so they can help each other out. What made you start it? And did you ever think that it would take off the way it did?
All right, great questions. Did I ever think it would take off the way it did? No. Last time I climbed into that group, which I think was earlier this morning, there's close to 2,000 active members in the group. Dude, never in a million years did I think there was 2,000 people who even knew what telematics installation was. So I was like, all right, well, that wowed me. I've been very open, honest, authentic, direct. Like, that's just the way I communicate. And I've been very open about my intentions for when I first started that Facebook group, what I wanted from it. And, man, you and I come from an industry where not everyone's open and honest. It's kind of a rarity in these days. And like, I flat out came in and said, hey, I'm currently a installation company owner. I got a team of close to 30 people. And at the same point in time, one of the biggest struggles we have is finding talent. Okay. What if I put together a community of like-minded individuals that can come in here? We could talk shop. I could find resources as far as technical assistance, because that's another thing. Being in such a deep niche of an industry like we are, finding someone who understands the technical problem that you may be having or facing at the job site is like pulling teeth sometimes, because people are like, I have no idea what you are, right? You call up Kenworth and you're like, yo, I got a 2022 Kenworth T whatever, trying to install this. Can you point me in the right direction? And that guy's going to hang up on you like, yo, I don't want you touching our truck. So, finding help is difficult sometimes. So that was one of the key pieces of starting that community, was I need to find and put together a community of people, like-minded, who understand the work that I'm doing, who can be that extra technical support if needed. And this is a two-way street. So you can't just come in there and pull all the time and ask for help. At some point in time, you're expected to give back to that group as well. And then, those are the two main factors. Number one, find technical help. Build a community, right? That's two. And the third one would be, this was a for me need. Okay. If you want to use the word selfish, you could, but not in a bad way. The selfish need for me was, man, I am in this industry and I'm having trouble finding technicians. If I put together a community of the best and the brightest in the industry, now I can cherry pick the top winners out of there. and eventually have them come work for me. And did that happen? Yeah, here and there. It didn't necessarily happen in the sense that I hired V2 employees to come work for us, although that did happen a little bit here and there. But it was more of, hey, we just landed a massive project and I don't have enough bandwidth with my existing team. I need to go find a reputable contractor who's close to my region, close to where the project's going to be located, that I can call up and be like, hey, John, I need help. I got 2 weeks worth of solid work for you. You interested? I don't have to vet this person. I don't have to train this person. I don't have to worry about if they're going to show up or not, because it's someone that I've built a relationship with over X amount of time, years, right? And I know that they're going to be a reliable human being.
So how long did it take to get to your overnight success?
45, going to be 46. I don't know, 45 years.
And even on the community side,
Yeah.
when you're building something out like that, I would imagine that there needs to be some sort of consistency that comes with that. And nobody's going to pay attention to you until who knows, right? So what'd that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. So for me, it was this. I'll give you the detailed story here, okay? I was married to my ex-wife, and we flew out to San Diego to go to some marketing training that I was interested in. So go out there, do this thing, and like on the flight there, I get this like, oh my God, I got this idea. You know how that goes. It's like, oh, and like, keep in mind, this is, sheesh, man, I don't know, maybe that group has been in place 7-8 years at this point in time. Social media and the internet that we know today wasn't as reliable and as at the tip of your fingers going back 7 or 8 years ago as it is now. So I got this idea, and I'm like, man, these Facebook groups, they're kind of new, and like, I think there's something to it, because I've been finding connection with people in my industry, and I find a lot of them on Facebook, even more on Facebook than in LinkedIn. Okay. So I'm going to start a Facebook group, right? Because that's where I'm very active for a lot of different reasons. I'm already gaining business off of Facebook. So I know it's a possibility. How do I put something together here, a community, and get this thing kicked off? So I'm having like all these lightning bolt thoughts on this flight from New York to San Diego. And you and I both know it's a 5.5, 6 hour flight. You got plenty of time to think. Okay. So the ideas are formulating in my head, bro. As soon as we got to the airport, as soon as we got to the hotel, I locked myself in the hotel room for like 3 or 4 hours. She was pissed. She wasn't happy. And I'm over there chomping away on the laptop, making things happen. And I built the Facebook group and launched it within those first couple of hours.
Instant success.
Yeah. No, not at all. That's where the consistency comes in, right? Because it's like, all right, well, there's a couple other groups out there. You know, I come from the 12-volt car audio community. There's a couple of car stereo groups out there. There's some crossover from the car stereo community to the telematics. So I go into those groups, start telling people about it, start posting on my personal Facebook profile. Got this new group. If you're in the industry, this is for you. But one of the key things that I did there was I locked it down. You could only come into that group if you were an active person in the 12-volt / telematics community. And if you're not, like, this isn't for you. This is for industry professionals only. And it's very apparent.
Why'd you do it that way?
Because I've seen other groups get a lot of spam and a lot of bullshit in there that I wasn't willing to put up with. Right? Something that people got to understand and know about me too is I'm allergic to drama. I've been involved in plenty of it in my life. Don't take it the wrong way. Okay, but I don't like it. I don't like to create it. I don't like to deal with it. So if I can keep all the fluff and the BS out of the group and keep it smaller but better quality people, I'm all for it. So that was the main reason for locking it down. Having entrance questions when people come into the group. Are you in the industry? Who do you work for? What's your company name? What's your email? All those kind of things. So the group started really taking off when it hit about 500 members. But until it was 500 members, it was, and it still was even after that, but it was a daily grind of me showing up in that group day in and day out, posting, commenting, interacting, engaging, going live, either from my phone or from my computer, going live at a job site. Hey guys, look, the latest Mercedes Sprinter just came out, and I found where to grab, constant 12-volt and true ignition. Here's where it is. And willingly sharing that information too.
You essentially created a database, right, for technicians for the technical side of their work, and I used it. Like I was on there, just putting the year, make, and model, and looking to see where they went to for the connections and all that. I used it. It was an incredible resource in the field.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was exactly what it was designed for. Because, here's the thing, man. Yeah, I'm the author, I'm the business owner, I'm the consultant, the coach now. Cool, all titles I have. But I was the guy in the field as the installer for the majority of my career. So I truly understand the issues that guys face when they're 3.5 hours from home and they've barely got cell signal and they got a brand new vehicle in front of them that no one's ever seen before. Like, how do I do this? And you've got limited tools with you because you're a roadie, guy on the road, right? You don't have your fancy scanners and your snap on this, your snap on that with you that you would have back at your traditional, retail car stereo installation facility. Like, how do we make something here that's going to help support the guy who's living that road warrior life?
So you mentioned something I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned something about when you was on the plane, you had all the ideas. And what sets success apart is not the idea, but you going back. And once you landed, the execution of, right? You sitting there and saying, hey, look, this is it. Like, at that point, you're the man of purpose, right? At that point, it's like, hey, look, I have to do this thing. I need to get it done. I'm sorry, San Diego's going to have to wait. And I completely understand that, right? But I feel like that's where people lose. That's where people lose, essentially, like how they get to success, right? They don't want to go do the work. They don't want to sit down and execute all the ideas that they had. And a lot of the times people were like, oh, somebody else will do it.
So there's a term for it. Time decay. So it's the point at which you have the thought or the idea and the time at which you decide to take action. That gap right there is time decay. And the longer the gap, the more decay there is, the harder it is to take that initial step. I'll give the equation here, right? Because we're all dudes. We all, at some point in time in our lives, probably walked into a bar or something, saw a good-looking girl, and we're like, I don't know if I should go over and talk to her. You get all this doubt, and all this crap creeps in, and then you wait, and by the time you wait, your homeboy walked in behind you and said, oh, I'm going to go get that one, and you lost it, right? Maybe they get married. I don't know. Maybe it was a one-night thing. We've all had scenarios or situations similar to that in our life. And it may not be a guy or a girl in a dating situation. We've all had these things where it's like, oh man, I had that idea. And two weeks later, I see Joe Blow on Facebook launched his new course, his new program, his new business, his new whatever. Like, man, I had that idea a year ago and I didn't take action on it. I had that idea 2 weeks ago, I didn't take action on it. Well, stop letting time decay come in and dictate your success or your failures.
And I hear that all the time. I hear it even with the stuff that I created, right? Where people are like, oh man, I had that idea. I hear you. Like, I don't claim to be a genius. I've executed. And those are the differences, right? The execution of, or if you're going to sit around and continue to just be complacent with whatever you got.
Yep. 100%.
So you had this amazing career, I feel like, especially in telematics. You built this incredible community. You had a top-notch installation company that everybody knew, everybody was aware of. What happened? Why the transition out?
Yeah, great question. I never loved the telematics industry. That's just full transparent honesty. I love the car audio industry. Okay. And here's what happened, right? I started as a professional installer when I was 17 years old. Okay. But by the time I was 2020, so by the time I was 40 years old, I was pretty much out of the telematics space. Right? So I had 23 years of like manual labor, physical work on top of running businesses and hiring people and all the other crap that comes along with it. Okay. My body was tired. I don't want to do it anymore. And I got a real good glimpse into what my future would look like if I had stayed in that position. Now, I'm not saying that this choice is right or wrong. It's a very personal decision, but it was not the right personal choice for me. My business partner in Top Class is 10 years my senior, and I got to see what his life was like 10 years from that point. And I said, you know what? It's not bad. He's built this thing. He's a successful guy, still is to this day. Hardworking dude. Probably one of the hardest working dudes I've ever met in my life. Okay. But I didn't want that for me. Again, not right, not wrong. It's a very personal choice. The telematics space to me became really transactional. You get a retail car stereo customer that comes into you and you end up building a relationship with that person that could last decades. You could work on their car when they're 17 and 15, 20, 25 years later, you're doing work on their son or their grandkid's car. Whereas the telematics space was like, especially when ELD came out and the government got involved, was now all of a sudden, all the mom and pop, owner operator drivers are now required to have an ELD, electronic logbook device, in their truck. So you've got, Jose and his son who own 2 trucks, and they run these things as hard as they can, make great money. They're on the road nonstop. And all of a sudden, Jose is like, government's telling me I got to put this thing in. So he orders this online from whatever vendor can get it to him fastest because he's in a pinch. And now all of a sudden we show up and he wants nothing to do with us. Like, we're here to serve you, serve your vehicle, service you and your company. You don't even want us here. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't give you that warm and fuzzy feeling. And conjunct to this, at the same point in time, like I was getting burned out in the telematics industry. If anyone's been either married or had a business partner at some point in time, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. People are different. And again, I'm not saying right. I'm not saying wrong. People are different. People also grow apart over time. And that's essentially what wound up happening with me and my partner there. We just grew apart. He wanted something different than I wanted in the outcome of where the business was going. And the outcome that he wanted didn't necessarily align with what I wanted to do.
So what if you stood in the scenario where you stood in the telematics industry, what'd that look like for you?
As far as where I was before I left?
Yeah. What would have been a determining factor for me to be like, yeah, this I can do. This is the path that I'd like to see.
Great question. So the only way forward that I really saw was to continue growing, expanding, and bringing people on and training people. And I didn't have that fight left in me, if that makes sense. I didn't love the industry enough that I wanted to go in and do that. However, conjunct at the same point in time, I was getting asked by people to help them with their businesses, right? From a coaching or consulting perspective. Okay. I started doing some of that. And at first I was doing it just because, and it started with the Facebook group. Started doing it because guys in that group were reaching out to me, sending me a DM, an email. Some of them had my cell phone calling me up. Hey, I got a question for you if you got a couple minutes of your time. Yeah, cool. What's up? I got XYZ going on. Something's happened in my life over here. Something's happened with the business. I got a business partner. The partnership's going like shit. All these different scenarios. And I was just coming in and helping, giving them some like unemotionally attached third-party suggestions. Best way to put it. Because when you're emotionally attached to your business, the same thing, like if you're emotionally attached to your home or your car, your choices are going to be different. They may not be logical if you're not emotionally attached. And that's the beauty of working with a coach or a consultant, in my opinion, is I can come in there and look at the straight facts and suggest to you, hey, this is the path versus this is the path. Whereas you're like, yo, this thing's my baby. I've nursed this thing from the ground up. I can't look at it that way.
There needs to be an emotional disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you grew something the way you've grown it. It's kind of like, you don't want anything to adjust necessarily, but you got to take a hard look.
You do.
Under the hood there.
You do, man. And, when I took that look, I realized that like my ladder was leaned up against the wrong wall. Like, hey, this is cool. It served. I learned a ton. I met some amazing people in the community. You guys, right? I'm still here. I still want to help these folks, but I don't want to be a guy turning wrenches anymore and traveling all over the country installing gear.
Get that.
Again, there's nothing wrong with it. Like it served me well. I took care of my family. I had a gorgeous house when I was living in New York and an even nicer house when I moved to Texas. It served its purpose. And the biggest blessing that came out of it for me, it forced me further into adulthood and manhood, if that makes sense. I'll tell you why. Okay. And dude, I'm as transparent as they come. I'm going to tell you how it is, whether people want to hear it or not. Right. And if that involves me throwing my own ass on the fire, it is that too. I started Top Class in 2009 with my partner. I just got married. I was 29 years old and I was just young, immature, and pretty damn dumb still at that point. Right. And I had only been in the small business world working for like mom and pop car stereo stores up to that point in time. And I owned one myself. That was another business I had prior that failed. And it was very eye-opening coming into the telematics space, especially dealing with the big companies, because now I went from communicating with, Joe, who owns the 2019 Toyota Tacoma, who wants a radio and 4 speakers, right? Who really doesn't care if you're that polished and professional, to dealing with Verizon Connect, Teletrack Navman, NextTrack. These are all giant corporations owned by even bigger corporations. And those guys expect everything polished and precise and fit and finished and clean. So even my communication had to grow and be improved upon over time. Or so here I am, like I'm this young kid at the time, even though I was 20, I would call myself a kid. Like I wasn't used to sending emails. I wasn't used to that form of communication. So there was this massive learning curve and leveling up that had to happen for me, not just on the business side of the house, but also on the personal side of the house.
You know what I call that?
Good.
Growing pains.
Oh, yeah. And they continued. 29, I get to the age of 34. My ex comes to me and says, hey, I'm pregnant. Awesome. We're trying for one. And I'm a real big firm believer in life-altering events, okay? So, for instance, a couple of life-altering events for me: marriage, having kids, moving cross country, divorce, injury, surgeries. Like those are things that happen. Death of a loved one. Like those are life-altering events. Whether you realize it or not at the moment, you're actually making a pivot in the direction of your life and which way it goes. So cool. Get married, start top class. Fast forward a handful of years, wife comes to me and says, I'm pregnant. Awesome. That one dude made me dig my heels in and say, and like I was terrified in a good way. And I'll tell it to you this way. It was that point in time that I realized that I was bringing another living, breathing human being into the world, and that my responsibilities up to that point were here. And now they just went to here overnight. And cool, you got a business. Cool, you got a nice corner house with a white picket fence, 2 brand new cars in the driveway. From the outside world looking in, I got the American dream. But yet now here comes this added responsibility. And now I'm like, oh, I don't have my house in order. My ducks aren't in a row. There's more to be done. And David, man, like that right there really lit the fire under my ass in a good way. And I said, all right, let me take a look at this business that I've been tinkering with now for a couple of years. Top class. Good. We make good money. Got a handful of people working for us. Maybe we had 5, 6 people at that time, but it could be better. I had enough of a visionary mindset where I could look at things and be like, yo, these big companies that we're doing these installs for, they're big companies for a reason. And what they pay us each year to do the work for them is a drop in the bucket for them. Trust me, there's more opportunity there. And then the question goes like, all right, well, how do we capitalize on that opportunity? Because right now, in the current way that we operate this business, I can't take on another install per day. Like it'll break everything. We were maxed out from a bandwidth perspective. So the question then becomes, and I know you think this way too, well, how do I become more efficient using the existing tools that I have, the existing team that I have, and the existing business that's coming in? How do we become more efficient from taking the unfinished to the finished? And if we can become more efficient and we can squish that time down from here to here now, well, now we can make more money with the same amount of work, or we have bandwidth to bring in even more work.
And I had, that was one of the things in regards to expanding out. That was one of my concerns, because there's too much internal overhead. At some point, you reach capacity. And if you do want to continue to grow, you have to grow internally as well. So how do you remove that, right? And that was my idea, right? How do I remove that so we can continue to scale and not have to scale internally as well? Because then it just defeats the purpose.
Yeah. And that goes back to the question you asked before, like what happened with Top Class? That's where Jimmy, my ex-partner, and myself, that's where we differed. That guy wants to install to the day he dies. Cool. I have no problem with that. But I also saw the writing on the wall that said, hey, if you're going to expand this thing out more to get to the goal that you want to get to, you're going to have to hang up those tools and permanently. Because now all of a sudden, you're not Tom, the GPS installer. You're Tom, the telematics installation provider.
You transitioned into a COO position.
Yeah, so I was a COO when I got down here. I'll give you the story. Part of me having that epiphany when my first daughter came in lit the fire under me, and I started getting real heavily involved in business coaches and masterminds for myself. It's like, hey, I got this idea. I see that the writing's on the wall. We have all this possibility. I don't have a clue how to put the dots together. And same thing had happened to me in the car stereo community. Like, hey, I know I want to be a custom fabricator, but I don't know where to start. So I went to trade school and I learned from the best. Okay. Again, back up now. This is the same story, different timeline, right? I want to grow this business and become the best. I don't know how to do it. So let me go work with the best and learn how they do it. And then I'll go implement into my business. That's exactly what I did. And I wound up working with a couple different business coaches. I work with one out of Dallas here. Did some work with them for about a year, saw some really good results. I learned a lot about setting up the Facebook community and how to leverage Facebook as a marketing tool to grow one's business while I was in that group. So I will credit that group still to this day for basically giving me the knowledge and the info I needed to take the action to start the GPS tracking installers group, right? Kudos to them. I did well with them. COVID hits, it's 2020. I'm in New York still. Things are kind of like, we got a little bit of work coming in because we're deemed essential, but nothing crazy. And I said to my wife at the time, I was like, yo, it's time to get out of here. Like, we've been talking for 2 years or so about moving, and like, now's the time to do it. She's like, yeah, I agree with you. So we picked things up. We wound up moving down here to Dallas. I get here to Dallas, and I was here like 2 weeks. And the owner of this coaching mastermind group calls me up. And I had been a one-on-one personal client of his for about a year. And I had already started coaching others inside of his organization as a contractor. So like, I got my feet wet in this space already pretty well. Okay. Calls me up and he's like, hey, I know you moved down here. I know you're good with operations, with business operations. I got a couple ideas. Why don't you come by my house? We'll talk. We'll do lunch. Cool. Long story short, I do all that. And November 1st of 2020 was my first day with him. And I wound up spending almost 2 full years there. And I worked my way into COO position of the company, Chief Operations Officer, and took that sucker from $3.5 million a year in gross sales. By the time I left, it was just under 14 million bucks. So we had some massive growth in a really short period of time. And I took my playbook, believe it or not, from the GPS tracking industry, the way that we build systems, we communicate, we have operations, and I duplicated that shit into the business coaching world. Obviously, I had to make some tweaks and make some adjustments because the two industries are very different. But it went to show me once again, like, hey, the general business practices are general business practices. I don't care what you do. And I saw some good wins there and whatnot. My time was up in July of 2022, and we decided to go separate ways. And it's like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going to go back to doing what I started doing when I first moved down here. And that's getting full-time involved with Stepping Up Academy, which you can see behind me.
So during that time when you started your transition, you speak to this guy, there's doubt there, right?
Yeah.
There's something there that you're like, man, I got to make this work. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know I got to make it work. Where was it that you was like, no, I got this. I got this on Smash. This is great.
I got to see other people who were operating in other industries who were making as much money or more with the same amount of work that went into the GPS telematics space. Dude, I know your background. I know the way you work too. I ain't scared of work. I know you're not either. Okay, but if someone shows me a better way to do something, that to me is clarity. So you're telling me I can get X, Y, Z with only doing 1, 2, 3 instead of doing 1 to 10. Cool. How do we make it better? So that was the mindset that I went in there with. And when somebody shows me an existing system, an existing process, and this is just, I guess, my zone of genius, and I'm not saying that from a cocky perspective. I hope people understand that, right? It's more confidence than cockiness, right? My zone of genius is, don't give me the blank canvas and expect me to build you something amazing. Give me some existing framework that you have in place, and I will then look at it and in a nanosecond be able to tell you the 10 things we can do to optimize it. If you give me the blank canvas though, what, bro, you want to see writer's block happen instantaneously? You will lock me up, man.
As far as like the frameworks and applying them into like different businesses, that's one of the things that I got from the military. When I left the military, I applied those same frameworks in the military into the companies that I was in like a glove, right? And you start to realize that it really doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just the steps of, and understanding the steps and understanding the hierarchy of everything, how everything works and how it needs to function. And then what is just being lean and then removing all of those steps that you really don't need.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's going back in over time too, because just because you built it once and it operates doesn't mean that you're done making it more efficient. Yeah, you got to go back in and revisit every so often. That's painful for me too, by the way. So real quick side note on that. as a former custom fabricator, he used to build shit from scratch all day long. I'd go in there and build the coolest thing in someone's car. And like a month later, they'd be like, yeah, I was thinking about adjusting it. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to take all my work apart.
So when you did leave, you built it up to 14 million. You helped build it up to 14 million. After that, you become your own founder. Now you're responsible for yourself. You have no ties to anything. Take me through that framework.
It was really fucked up period of my life, to be quite frank with you. Okay, I'll give you the backstory. February 2022, my ex-wife is diagnosed with breast cancer. June of 2022, she goes in, has a double mastectomy. Okay. July of 2022, she goes in and starts chemotherapy. And July is when we decided, hey, like this isn't a good fit anymore for either of us. We're getting more stressed out than we need to be. See you later. So I take on the additional weight of all of a sudden, like granted, I made good money over there and had money stashed, but now all of a sudden, like, hey, if I'm going to make anything happen, it's 100% up to me, not the team that I've built or put into place to help along as well. Right? Because you understand the flywheel theory. Once the flywheel starts to go and you add spokes people onto the flywheel, this thing starts kicking. Like it's just kicking money off nonstop. And that's where I was when I was running the coaching mastermind group with this dude. So here I am from this new flywheel position of stalled. And I got all this crap happening in the personal side of the house too. And like it was a tough period for me. You know, fast forward through it a couple months and shit, I think it was probably a year or so after, and started having some conversations with the ex at that point in time and realized like, hey, like we've outgrown each other too. We've been through a lot of shit. We still care for each other, but this isn't the best of fit for us either. Navigating, it was like, I mean, damn, since 2020, even though 2020 through 2022 were really good years for me on the financial spectrum, they were all very difficult because there was things happening behind the scenes that we may not be aware of or know is happening. And then cool, they do happen. You deal with them as they're there. And, you know, I've got issues going on in the house, the personal house with health issues with the ex-wife. I'm dealing with starting up a new company. I'm dealing with, you know, getting this thing launched. Now, luckily I have, and this is part of the importance of doing the work, even when you don't think you're making any progress. I had done so much work and impacted so many people in such a good way that when I did launch my company, people were raising their hand and I couldn't keep up with them to come in and do consulting work with them.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, it was a really good problem to have. What it wound up doing though is that problem fixed some, but caused others. That's just the nature of the beast. Right. So the problems that it fixed was, okay, cool. Well, the financial woes are taken care of. We don't have to worry about that. But now, and the road warriors who are going to be listening to this podcast get it. Well, now I'm on the damn road nonstop going into people's businesses and working with them for 2 days, 3 days a week at a time. Right. So 2023, which was the first full year of me working for myself solo in a consulting perspective, was the heaviest travel year of my entire adult life. Even more so than when I was doing GPS installs.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. So like that stressed out the relationship at home even further. Right now I'm getting disconnected from my kids. I got 3 amazing biological kids of my own. That has now shifted too. Right. We're up to 7 at this point in time, and we can get into that story too.
You have some time.
So, yeah, it was just a wild period, man. You know, and looking back at it, I'm grateful that I got to experience all of it because once again, life happens not necessarily to us, but for us. And life was unfolding and happening for me for the best reasons possible. Showed me where I was really valued from a business and a personal perspective. Showed me that I had my ladder leaned up against the wrong walls in a couple of different scenarios in my life. And I don't know about you, man, but when I get clarity, I got to take action. And if I have clarity and I don't take action, that is me making a willful decision to sit with the shit that I've also created, because everything's our fault.
Right.
Yeah, dude, you probably get that from your military background, right?
I just get that from my background. Period.
Even better. Yep.
And then me.
Yeah, good, bad, indifferent. It's all your fault. You won today? Good, it's your fault. You lost today? You got kicked square in the dick? It's your fault. Okay, that's it. And we have to take that extreme ownership. We do.
You do. So taking that responsibility gets you to where you can actually create the improvements. If you're always blaming somebody else, then there's nothing for you to improve on. If you take the responsibility, then it's like, okay, cool. How do I make it better? You know, when I think back in regards to clarity, right? When I think back in the beginning, I'm very similar to you in regards to, I loved being a tech. It was great for me. I loved it. I loved being on the road. I love not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring, essentially, you know, the people that you're going to meet, listening to podcasts on the road. But I knew that me being a technician was not the thing that I was looking to be. That wasn't my goal. From the absolute beginning, when my brother-in-law was explaining the industry to me, I knew that Techsbook was the thing that I wanted to do, that I needed to do. And although it was fun while it lasted, that also wasn't the thing that I wanted to do long-term forever. And some of these guys are awesome. Like the stuff that they know in regards to installations and electricity, this stuff is absolutely incredible. And I just couldn't see myself getting to that level at some point.
Yeah. It's 20 years plus of nerdiness and on-the-job experience. That's what gets you there.
Do you think about going back?
I have. And here's the deal, man, right? You hear a lot of stuff, especially in the self-development, the motivational space, the coaching community, burn the boats, right? And that's centuries old, that saying. In all reality, like, yeah, I kind of have burned the boats, but at the same point in time, you can never take away the skill set that took me 23 years to develop. You can never take away my ability to manipulate hand tools like my body has been taught over the years, right? And again, I'm not saying that from a cocky perspective. Like, I don't pick up hand tools every day of my life anymore. But for instance, you know, there's a project that goes on at the house. So you got to hang a picture on the wall, got to go fix something in the car. Well, you bust out those tools and it's like riding a bike. You're back to like, oh, wow, the crimper's still got your palm print in it from the last time you used it. Like it's an extension of your body. So I say that because, you know, if push came to shove and if I needed to do something, I needed to turn a couple extra bucks. It's legitimately a phone call to someone like you or somebody else in the industry who I trust and respect. A lot of things will trigger memories for me. Sometimes it's actions. Sometimes it's seeing a specific vehicle, right? Like usually that's giving me bad memories of an install gone sideways back in the day. We used to call them career wreckers in my 12-volt car stereo days. We had a couple of cars that would come in the shop and you had to touch it. Be like, yep, that thing's a career wrecker. Don't touch it.
You did the thing where you're driving down the road and you're like, oh yeah, I worked on that. I worked on those vehicles.
No, stop. Bro, it's been 5 years since
nobody
I've
cares.
done it.
Whoever's
No
in
one
the
gives
car
a
with
shit,
you doesn't care.
right? I'm halfway across the country from where I was, and I still see vehicles on the road like, oh yeah, we work for that company. We did installs for them back in 2019. We did 800 installs in New Jersey.
Kids are like crickets.
Yeah, kids are like, I don't give a shit, Dad.
But in your head, man, you're like, oh yeah, you remember like going and breaking apart the dashes and.
Yep, happens at the airport too. And you may have been involved in this, and for people who may be outside of the telematics industry, there's a company called Sky Chefs that you'll find at every major airport across the U.S. And they are one of the food service providers for the airplane meals, right? And they got these crazy ass trucks that they're not registered, that they don't pass emissions. Bro, they are bombs on wheels, okay? And they have these giant truck bodies that extend up to the height of the door on the plane, and they just offload all the gear and stuff onto the plane in between the flights. They're big here in Dallas. They were big up in New York. And like, man, it brings me back to memories of going on site for them and doing work and dealing with their employees and the crappy ass trucks that they were trying to weld back together after they backed it into 30 other vehicles in one day. Just a complete disaster.
We got this rapid fire round thing. First question, what's one book every entrepreneur should read besides you?
Mine, of course. That's a really good question. There's a whole bunch that come top of mind for me. Really good one, Entree Leadership by Dave Ramsey. And let me put this out here. I am not a believer in what Dave Ramsey preaches from a financial standpoint. I think that is, if you're following his financial advice, you're definitely thinking more of as an employee than you were as a business owner. However, that dude knows what he's talking about when it comes to growing businesses. And a lot of people don't know this about him, but that dude has owned a massive company out of Tennessee for a really long time that does well north of $100 million in gross sales a year. He's got a massive ass team working for him. He knows how to run businesses.
When I think about what you said, though, I think kind of he's more focused on the penny pinching, right? And not necessarily the risk taking. And
Correct.
It's the risk taking where you gain the reward, to your point. Next one, biggest myth about starting a business.
Biggest myth about starting a business. I had a cousin of mine who did that and he failed. So you are too, right? The naysayers. Dude, it's one of the biggest problems I see is like, you get this idea, you finally have gone through the time decay crap and you start to take action. Maybe you file your paperwork, you got the LLC coming in, you're excited about it. And then you start telling people and they shit on you. Can't stand it.
But this is the thing that comes with the struggle to get you to the place. And this is where some people fall off too, right? In that part where the struggle of my friends won't buy, my family won't buy, and you start feeling resentful because they're not buying. But the thing is, this is your dream. This is your plan. This is your vision. Forget about them buying, right? If you can get the masses to buy, everybody else is going to follow.
I'll tell you a quick story.
Please.
So I had one of my grandfathers growing up was a pretty successful entrepreneur. Okay, like not a millionaire by no stretch of imagination, but he owned a business, did pretty well. And when I was 19, I had quit my job working for a really successful high-end car stereo shop in Long Island, and I decided to go out on my own for the first time. And I was over my grandparents' house for like Thanksgiving dinner or some shit, Easter, whatever it was. And my grandfather goes to me, this is at the entire dinner table with all the family around. So, hey, I heard you don't have a job. No, I started my own business. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he said, so you're unemployed. And it rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, dude, I'm getting hot under my collar just thinking about it right now. All right, rubbed me the wrong way. And like, here's a man that I looked up to who also owned and ran his own business, who could not understand that his grandson was coming in and kind of following in his footsteps and doing the same thing. And for the longest time, I used that fire to fuel me. And you gotta figure out a way to do something with it. Because if you don't, either you're going to let it burn your own ass in a bad way, or you're going to conform to what society and the people around you who love you, what they think is the best for you.
If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be doing something in the fun industry. Fun to me, at least. You guys can see behind me, I got a couple of deer heads hanging up on the wall there. At a late age in life, I got involved in the outdoors and started hunting and whatnot, and I love the outdoors. So something probably in the firearms or archery industry, or even like some hunting gear, like either designing it, selling it, marketing it. One thing I have learned over the last couple of years, man, I thoroughly enjoy marketing. And for the longest time, I avoided it like the plague. And then it's kind of one of those things where you put enough reps in over time and you wind up getting pretty good at it. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm pretty good at that all of a sudden, even though I never wanted to be. So here I am now, 45 years of age, and like I know more about marketing than most people probably should. And I know that I could take that skill set and apply it to another industry.
So in regards to hunting, I'm from Brooklyn. I don't know when you started hunting. I think Long Island's a little different, right? You got hunters.
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean, dude, I grew up 13 miles from Manhattan. I didn't grow up that deep into Long Island, right? I grew up in Franklin Square. And when I was 25 years old, I had a buddy of mine who said, hey, my wife, he just got married. My wife's parents just bought a piece of property in upstate New York. And they said we can come up and do whatever we want. So at first that meant, as we were a bunch of jerk-off young kids, we go up there and drink beer and shoot guns. Cool. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? Yeah, I mean, after a while, that gets kind of boring. So it was like, hey, we're out here shooting guns and drinking beer, and we see all these animals floating around. Maybe we should shoot an animal. Right? Just a bunch of young idiots from Long Island, right? We do the whole deal. We go and we get hunting licenses, the whole 9 yards, and we start hunting up there. And like, we got this small window of like 3 weeks a year to go hunting. Like, oh, this is stupid. Spending all this money, spending all this time, driving up there, freezing our asses off outside for what? Like, And at that point in time too, I was working for a guy in Riverhead, all the way in the east end of Long Island, and like spending more time out there. Like it's farm country out there. People don't realize that Long Island's full of farm country. And bro, there's deer everywhere. So long story short, we wound up going back in and getting our certificate to bow hunt, and we started bow hunting Long Island. And that's what everything changed for me. Because I found my spots. I had a couple pieces of private property that I had access to. I had state land that I had special permits for. And any moment that I could possibly get out there and hunt during the hunting season, like I was gunning for it. And it's like anything else. Like I just talked to you about marketing. At first, I was a terrible marketer, then I became a good marketer. First, I was a terrible installer, and I became a really good installer. Same thing with hunting. Like at first you start, you're terrible at it. You keep putting the reps in, you get the experience, and over time, like anything else, you wind up getting good at it if you're consistent.
What's the difference between bow hunting and just shooting them?
I mean, look, dude, your time spent in the military, I'm sure you're pretty damn proficient with a firearm. Okay. I never served in the military. Okay. I'll be very transparent about that. But I'm one of those dudes that was able to pick up a firearm at a very young age, and it was just an extension of my arm. Okay. Like I was good and proficient with it. And I don't know why. I don't know how. Up until, I was much older in life, I never had any formal training. I just could pick up, I could shoot pretty good. Great? No, but pretty good. Started hunting upstate, and the window was real short. And then like, bro, 100-yard shot with a high powered rifle is like a chip shot in golf. Okay. Like it's okay. That was hard. When you're bow hunting, it's way different. Like for me, even to this day, like I'm not taking a shot beyond 40 yards. So your skill set in preparing yourself, hiding, being more quiet, less scent, knowing more about wind, right? And wind direction and how it brings scent and swirling wind versus wind coming from a direction. All of those things are part of the equation if you're going to be successful or not that day with the bow. So you have to become a better overall hunter if you're going to be successful with a bow.
Now, does it change kind of the way that you can prep your meat and stuff like that?
Nope.
There's nothing that changes there?
Not at all. In my experience, not always, for the most part, it's almost a more humane way to dispatch the animal.
The bow.
Yep.
Why you say that?
Well, gunshot, it's blunt force, it's trauma. Okay. Like the bullet hits, it's either going to break bone, break tissue, rip muscle. It'll put a big ass hole through a vital. Like you're aiming for a vital, a heart, a lung. You can put the animal down and drop it instantly, but the chances of that happen are usually pretty slim. And like the impact channel, say from like a 30-30 or a 308, it's big. It's a hole. Don't get me wrong. You compare that to a 2-inch wide broadhead that's an expandable. So as the tip of the arrow hits the deer, the broadhead goes from this and expands out like this. Now it's 2 inches wide. After this podcast, I'll send you some photos, and you tell me which wound channel's worse.
So, I'm confident that people look at, this conversation, right? And talking about hunting and, you feel some type of way about it because it sounds violent and yada, yada, right? I'm 41, and probably about a year ago, I had this epiphany that you can't fully be a man of peace unless you know how to hunt.
Oh yeah.
Because at that point you become absolutely self-sufficient and you don't need from anyone at that point.
I agree. We said it before, or I said it before. It's a skill that I have that no one can ever take away from me. Ever.
And look, and this is why I say the man of peace part. I say that primarily because if you look at everything that we have right now, you can go to the store, you can get whatever you want. If everything collapses, which is possible because everything's fragile. I don't care how much people are like, oh yeah, no, all of it is fragile. And if it all falls apart, the ones that don't know how to hunt, they'll go hunt a different way. The ones that do know how to hunt, they'll be the most peaceful.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of my outlook on it.
Yeah. There's so many micro lessons that are in it too, that you can tie in. It's not just about the harvesting or the hunt of the animal, but it's about what you do afterwards. Right. And I think this is an area that we screw up as a society is, hey, we go to the store and we buy this animal. People aren't used to, they don't understand that, hey, just because you bought the animal at your local Kroger, right, or Pathmark, wherever the food store is up by you, right?
Pathmark.
Pathmark, I'm dating myself there. Right? Like that
Wait,
animal.
no, it's from New York, right?
You got to be from New York to know what Pathmark is, right? Like that animal was still killed in order to be served up in your grocery store. Okay? It was just done in a facility. It was done with a pneumatic bolt, most likely, and it probably wasn't the most humane thing possible. Right? And then what do they do with all the leftovers? What do they do with the hide? What do they do with this? What do they do with that? And if you look back in history, I like history a lot. You look back in history of what the American Indians did with the animals that they harvested. They used every single bit of the animal and they recycled it and they used it over and over and over again. They took certain bones from the bison and they made kids' toys out of it. They saved the oils and they put the oils in their hair and they put the oils in their skin.
Where did you learn it? Like, where did you learn that? Like, stuff like that.
I'm just that weirdo who will sit on YouTube on a Saturday morning and like, oh, that's interesting. Let me watch that for 3 hours. Right. So where did I learn it? I don't know, man. I could have learned that shit 20 years ago or 2 days ago.
So you know what I find interesting? What I do right now? You use AI?
Yeah,
ChatGPT?
every day.
All right, cool. So, before when you had to like do research and you have to go different links and all that stuff, now I go down my rabbit holes, but I go down them so quickly now, right? And I'm asking ChatGPT all these questions and just like breaking apart history to understand history better and asking the questions and even arguing with ChatGPT at times, right? Because I feel like I'm not getting the whole scope of what it is that I'm looking for, right? It's just an interesting transition when it comes to, how you would learn things before to how you can learn things now and potentially what it's going to look like in the future too. It's really interesting, man. Thomas, this has been awesome. You've been a huge part of the technician community and helped so many business owners get their act together. I know a lot of people listening are gonna walk away with some serious takeaways. Before we wrap it up, where's the best place for people to connect with you or learn more about Step It Up Academy?
Yeah, man. First, I appreciate coming on here and being a guest. I love it. You and I just have good conversation. We always do. And it's one of the reasons we keep coming back and doing this. As far as connecting with me, it's real simple. I got one place you can go to and head over to the website, connectwiththomas.com. And my name is formerly Tomas, so it's Tomas. There's no H in there. Connectwiththomas.com. That's a page right there that links out all the places that I exist in the online platforms. You'll find my social media links there. You'll find my website links there, all of that stuff.